Hey, you! I'm your nutrition coach. My name is Jackie Poole. Welcome to Happiness is a Healthier Habit. Let's get today's episode started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode. Let's see. Today, I want to be diving into this topic that's been a very big part of my morning routine, just what I've been doing lately. It's part of one of the habits that I instill in my clients, especially as we get older, right? And based on today's title, I'm pretty sure you know I'm talking about mobility. So if you're someone who works out regularly, or even if you're just, starting your journey, mobility is one of the things that you might not realize you need until you start feeling stiff or achy or limited, right? So today we're going to be talking about what mobility is, why it matters, and just simple ways you can start, incorporating in your routine. And so I've been doing mobility like first thing in the morning. I've been incorporating some mobility kind of before my workouts, in between. Those are kind of just things that I do during the week that I've added. Just so many good stuff. And I feel better. My range of motion is better. I feel less stiffy, especially if you're somebody that's lifting heavy or that's starting to just feel achy and everything cracks. And because lately, honestly, that's how I've been feeling. And so I've added it more and more as the weeks have gone by this year. And it's just really great for me to start my morning. So I really like to add that and sprinkle it in. Sometimes I take them as workouts. It's like 40 minutes of, upper body or, hip mobility, especially for my running. If you haven't heard me say this before, a few years ago, I don't know what I did, but I tweaked my back, my hip. Something was off. And one day I came back from running and I was so sore, like I was having a hard time walking for the rest of the day, like something was just off. And so after that, every time I would go running, I would get that. And so it wasn't until I started incorporating some of exercises that really help with hip mobility and just incorporating a lot more walking, that I really kind of fixed that. So I actually got rid of the pain and I don't have that anymore. And so it can be very scary when we have certain aches and pains and they get worse, or, they're indicating of, poor movement and poor, running is definitely a skill that has to be acquired, I think. And that's something that I just kind of went and, I'm just going to go run one day. And, that's a lot of people do. I'm like, I'm just going to run. And it's not something that comes natural to us. It's definitely a skill that you have to work at. And these movements have definitely allowed me to continue practicing the skill, but also taking care of my body so I don't get injured, so I don't feel stiffy. And so let's talk about what mobility is, right? First things first. Mobility is just different form of just, being flexible, right? Flexibility is your ability for your muscles to just stretch. Mobility is your body's ability to move through its full of range of motion in control, right? With that control. So if your joints, your muscles, everything is moving and working together, you can move well and move easily. So that's the point of what mobility is. And so mobility is what really lets you kind of squat down to pick up your kids, or without, throwing your back, right? That's something like I like to say, like, or without like, oh, I run, and then like halfway through the run, you like tweak something. So it really makes it easier for you to go on your runs, to lift weights, to just live without pain. I think that is the most important thing, because when we have pain, there's a certain point where you kind of start compromising the way you do things. You start compromising and sacrificing form and activities, or you kind of stop it altogether, right? Pain can be very debilitating. I've seen and I've talked about my husband's surgeries, his last back surgery, like the pain that he had. I mean, he couldn't walk, he couldn't sneeze, like it was just, he couldn't do anything. Like he was, even laying down after a certain amount of time really was uncomfortable. So we want to live without pain. And so the crazy thing is, mobility naturally decreases as we age if we don't work on it, just like anything else, right? If we don't try to work out, we lose muscle. If we don't go on runs, we are losing that skill, right? If we it just kind of goes with everything. And so we want to make sure that we are adding mobility, because it just, as that saying goes, right? Use it or lose it. And we really don't want to lose it. So why is it important, right? That's something that I've definitely talked to some of my clients about. It is, I think, like in week 4, I have a program that I give to my clients to work on specific stretches for back, because that tends to be where a lot of people have issues. But it's not just back, right? It can be with hips, with shoulders. So mobility isn't about feeling good. It's really, that's a huge benefit to it. But I like to think of it as injury prevention, right? To prevent yourself from injury, to live a lifestyle without pain, so improve the longevity, so have a good quality lifespan. It's about staying independent and doing the things that you enjoy doing without compromising, having that pain or living with pain, right? And just staying dependent, because I've experienced it just a little bit, enough for me to really add it and incorporate it into my lifestyle. And so it's going to benefit you like decades to come. So like poor mobility really creates, again, like I said earlier, you start creating like patterns that compensate for, not having that full range of motion. And your body is very resilient. Like your body really finds ways to work around certain movements, but honestly, it comes at a cost, right? Like your joints and your muscles and your connective tissue, when you're grinding something and it's not fitting in the right way, like you start chipping away into other things. So when you start seeing back pain, hip pain, knee pain, sometimes again, shoulder pain, neck issues, mobility really needs to be added and addressed, right? Kind of finding that root cause of where the bigger problem is, right? And the best part is like improving your mobility actually makes you feel more effective because your joints move better. You can have less pain. Honestly, it makes a world of a difference when you start incorporating some of these things. And so when you do that, your workouts are more effective, you move better, you feel lighter. Of course, you're going to have less pain, your recovery quicker, you're feeling less stiff. It's, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just older, it just kind of happens. But no, right? We need to work on this like anything else. And again, like I've said earlier, like I started incorporating it into my morning routine, where I really get like a full body. I just do like one exercise and move on to the next, where I can really cover all my best bases, kind of like a full body stretch, and do it that way. So I kind of do that every single morning, along with some breath work when it's quiet. And instead of my walks that I used to do, I've really kind of toned that down and really worked on mobility. So that's definitely flipped for me these past few months, or kind of this year, and really emphasized mobility a lot more. So like I've said earlier, how do you actually work on mobility? It doesn't have to be complicated or time consuming. Here I have a few ways to start, and I definitely learned quite a bit from taking that CPT course. And I'm actually going to be taking a corrective exercise course as well, that really kind of helps with more fixing the pain and improving movement. So I'm excited to start that here in the next few weeks. But like I said, it's made a world of a difference in my own journey, in my own life. And I see it with my husband, with myself. And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated. Like I said, I do full body pretty much every single day instead of my walks. And it can be like incorporating some dynamic stretching before your workouts, maybe things like hip openers or arm circles or really deep body squats. Maybe just even squatting like 2 minutes a day. Like I used to see this coach, I forgot his name, Noel, something like that. And he would squat kind of like, just like babies do, right? And he would say he would do that for like 10 minutes a day to just kind of really improve the flexibility and the mobility of his hips, to improve the depth of his squat, right? And so I kind of incorporated that lately, but I just kind of do like 2 minutes, and I kind of hold on to something so I'm able to go as deep as I can. And so that's just one way of doing things, right? Dynamic stretching before workouts. You can do mobility flows or routines that you may have, and those can be short as 5 to 10 minutes. And again, a lot of back pain derives from poor hip movement, even, ankle movements. A lot of people suffer from shoulder pain. So definitely doing routines that 5 to 10 minutes that focus on specific areas, based on if you're feeling something in a specific part of your body, you can focus on that, 5-10 minutes daily to have a routine. And if you're my client, you have access to a back and hip mobility, as well as I'm going to be adding a few more that for runners. I'm going to be doing that for runners. I have like a helping improve like a toe alignment ritual to do before, doing heavy squats. I also have like an upper shoulder mobility exercise flow. So I've created a whole bunch that I've actually implementing myself, because I've been having a little bit of shoulder nicks and here and there. And so kind of improving that, and adding these into my, weekly routines, and just taking away from certain things that I once did and plugging this instead to just have optimal health for my joints, right? Especially if you're lifting heavy. And so, so incorporating dynamic stretches before workouts, doing mobility flows or daily routines, prioritize, it's called cars, but it's controlled articular rotations, right? So basically you're just moving your joints through their full range of motions in a very controlled way. This could be your shoulder, this could be your hip, right? They're kind of like sockets there that kind of have full range of motion. I think those are really good for those specific joints. You can also use a lot of tools out there. There's foam rollers, there's lacrosse balls. I'm not a big fan of guns. I've tried guns. I just don't feel like, unless somebody's doing it for you, it just doesn't feel the same, right? So you can use bands as well. I like to use those for improving and connecting maybe with some like hip and glute areas before heavy workouts, like if you're squatting deep or something like that. But there's those tools that you can use to kind of really start improving mobility. So you want to make sure you're listening to your body. You want to make sure that it feels good and it's not super painful, right? Sometimes it's going to hurt, but it's like a good type of hurt as opposed to like, oh no, I'm not doing this, right? Very distinctive, because when you're stretching, there is kind of some type of discomfort, especially if you're a beginner. But when you're moving into it, you don't want to be in pain. So if you feel something that is stuck, or it's a sign that, it's not moving right, always just kind of listen to your body, not force it. Let your body go to the range that it naturally allows you to go. And the more you do it, the more you repeat some of the movements, the better flexibility and mobility that you will have, right? So again, you want to make sure you do these on a regular basis, and it doesn't have to be like a forever exercise, but even just 5 minutes a day will work wonders. And so I've shared a lot about how I've added mobility and how it's improved the quality of my life lately, but it's improved not only like my range of motion, but I think I'm definitely running better. I'm definitely having less back pain. Like I said, lately I've been having some shoulder stuff, so that's why I created that upper body shoulder mobility to kind of work with those knickknacks. But it makes you feel better, right? We're not supposed to be waking up all stiff and all like, joints cracking, and it just feel like something's, tugging at you. So this really kind of helps your body wake up if you're doing first thing in the morning, or you can even add it at night, and do more like static stretching. And that really helps with kind of calming the body system a little bit, and even can improve sleeping as well. You can feel younger. It's really something that should be incorporated. If you're working out, if you're lifting weights, that is something that you should definitely do to not compromise form or improve form. So definitely something that needs to be added into a routine. So if you're interested in any of those, I would love to hand them over. They will be, if you're a client of mine, they will be in week 12, so they will have access to those. But other than that, if you're someone who's been feeling stiff, or like your body just doesn't move the way it used to, you really want to start like now. Mobility work is truly, I think, one of the most powerful things you can do as we get older. I remember when I used to be younger, I would never stretch. I would just go straight into my workout and let's go. But these days, I cannot do that because it's more likely to create an injury. And so we don't want that. So a few minutes a day really adds up. And the reward is like you feel stronger, you feel more capable, you feel more free to move as you're designed to, right? And so you improve the quality of your life. And so that is just something that, again, I incorporate in my coaching program. There will be those accessible to you if you're wanting them. So that's all I got for you today. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you've loved this episode, make sure you subscribe and share it with somebody you know who needs a little bit more mobility love. And as always, let's move well, live well, and yeah, we'll chat next time. Bye.